Right now, it is time to bring in Jim Lynch. Cover your assets. Jim is an independent voice on Wall Street, the economy, and politics. He brings over 40 years of experience to these subjects and more, and we're lucky to have him join us every week at this time. Good morning, Jim.
And good morning to you, Marshall, to everybody out there. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a marvelous morning. Beautiful, beautiful day. We're finally getting it together weather-wise. Anyhow, I had a pleasant personal upliftment this morning. I saw that Albert Pujols, who worked with the Los Angeles Angels for many years and the St. Louis Cardinals, previously great, tremendous power hitter. He was let go by the Dodgers a week or so ago. Not the Dodgers, the Angels. He was picked up by the Dodgers, and don't you know, in his first time out, he hit a single score. They scored 2 runs, and he won the game. And it kind of revived a little bit of the interest that has been very flagging from a all-time baseball fan. So hopefully I'm back, and I've always found since I was 4 years old, baseball was really my thing. My grandfather on my mother's side actually created a little team called the Flatbush Grays. I guess just prior to the war, during the war. My father played shortstop and my Uncle Lou pitched, so I love the game. Anyhow, I share that joy with you. I hope you're having various good things happening with the pandemic still getting under control, I guess. And I know we're saying, well, let's demask and let's do a lot of other things. My only thought for you is be very cautious. I am not going to demask probably until I don't know whenever. I've invested too much time, as I'm certain many of you have, in being locked down, locked out, concerned, upset, not seeing family and friends. But it's like a ball game. It's the maybe 7th, 8th inning, and you're ahead just a few runs. You really don't want to give up the game by being sloppy. And so I wish you all well in that. I'm not trying to dictate anything. I'm just telling you what I'm doing.
Yeah. Jim,
from the news, I would like to tell you, check the Los Angeles Times. Eric Clapton, one of my most favorite musicians, he took his AstraZeneca, a vaccine which we do not recommend in this country. It's not been approved by the FDA. And he had all kinds of terrible symptoms, bordering on the fact he thought he might have lost some of his limbs and his talent and so forth. He's better now, but he was on the ropes for several weeks. So this is why it's very important that we've paid attention to our own FDA and get those vaccines that they have approved. We have been the leader in this area of science ever since the Second World War, maybe before. And I think we should all be grateful for the tremendous work that the CDC and so forth have done. But you really have to take care of yourself. You can't get sloppy. You just can't get sloppy.
I want to go back to you talking about baseball for a second, because you opened up a flood. You opened up a flood of memories for me. When I was a kid, we lived on a farm, Elm Valley Farm, and this was back. I'm 68, so this is back. Let's go back 60 years, 50, 58, 59 years, and in those days, families got together all the time, and I say families. Our family had people in Connecticut. People in New Jersey, people in New York, but you'd have weekends where 50 to 60 family members would come, visit at different houses. And we had a lot of field space. Jim, we built a wiffle ball park that had a backstop and had a green monster. It had a deep alley like Yankee Stadium. We set up bases and everything, and we would have wiffle ball games. And we even set it up so we put lights, Jim, and we had, and you just opened up a flood of memories to me, how baseball used to be the true form of baseball, America's game. And I'm not just talking about the major leagues or the minors. I'm talking about every kid picked up a ball and either you played little league or minor league, but you played wiffle ball at home. It was the sport to play when I was a young kid.
Yeah. The days, those are the days. I love the story of your family getting together. That was so true some time ago about families getting it all together. That was a natural pleasure and joy. You didn't have to spend a lot of money, but you got the togetherness of others, of family members. And I don't know, hopefully some of those things will reemerge here as people who've been locked out of their families realize how valuable families are, and we'll get back to the old times when you did spend some time and just saying, hey, let's get in the car and we'll bring in some food and go in the backyard and we'll talk for a couple of hours or whatever. I think we've missed a lot of that with all of the entertainment we have been given, and sometimes we overdo.
You know, Jim, I do have a question to ask you though, because you dealing with the stock market and dealing with the high pressure and in knowing high income people, and a thing has become apparent over the past couple of years. You look at this Bill Gates and Melinda Gates thing, where once again he had an affair. It seems. The people that we worship and we put in hero positions because of their success, they're just as fallible as anybody else in making wrong decisions over the course of life. And I hope people learn from looking at the news not to despise somebody because they did something that was dumb and stupid, because we all do it. But what's amplified is when you are successful, and when your success actually impacts the success of the American economy, like people like Jeff Bezos and now Gates, and you look at all these individuals, and Elon Musk. These are individuals that have become so big and so important, they actually affect economies. And folks, they're humans. They make the same mistakes that you and I make.
That's an excellent point. An excellent point. And you know, since they've proven themselves to be human, like we all are, there's very good points and some bad points. Yeah. I think it's very important that somehow we get into our consciousness, but maybe more importantly, the consciousness of the young people who we're bringing into the world and educating, that money, success in making money, is not really the be-all and end-all that we have in this country and elsewhere, but particularly in this country, made so important. There is more to a human being created with a great mind and body and intuition and the ability to create than making of money. And you know, when these people get leveled in terms of their foibles, that should help us. We shouldn't feel badly or good for them. We should learn that life is not just the almighty dollar. In fact, if you look over the years, that really ruined many people's careers who were very good and decided to cheat and get involved and go to jail and so forth. But I have to tell you that I am so concerned about where we're going in terms of our young people. They've really not been given very good example, particularly here in the last 4 or 6 years, where this againstness, which has been allowed to prosper for the sake of politicians who basically say, we want power, we don't care how we get it. And that's influencing young men and women and older people. They have this approach of my way or the highway, and they're beginning to demonstrate it in physical violence. We see that in the armed forces. We see that in the insurrection. We see people, unfortunately, the things happening in this city now, these dastardly crimes where people are crazy and go up and shoot and maim somebody, that's not just because those people are mentally ill. That's something has happened to them as we've created this virus of against us, this virus of hostility. And we've got to step in and we've got to do something about it. And we can certainly start with our youngsters in showing them the way. And it's not some altruistic thing I'm talking about. It's survival I'm talking about. We are going to get better as a country. We have got better. We have to get better as individual human beings and families, and make things that are important. Which was getting back to the people who have a tremendous amount of wealth. God loved them. They were creative. They worked hard. They sacrificed as young people, many of these people. But the point is, we've created a society here where we've allowed through our system of political donations to give people, once they make $1 billion, they can call the shots, so to speak, on the way the government does things. An overly simplistic example is the Republicans currently saying, well, they don't want to help the general public. They don't want to help people who are sick, who are out of work, whose children need medical help. They want to spend the money on those people and their businesses who are giving them donations. A current example of this, which I was kind of flabbergasted by, not that I should be, Peter Thiel, who is a German who immigrated here as a child, a very successful businessman, obviously very bright, working hard and so forth, and has given to Republican causes and is very much into, he's against globalization and so forth. But he says he's giving $10 million each to two people who are going to run for Senate, one in Arizona, I forget at the moment where the other one is, $10 million to get them elected and to overturn the current small majority that the Democrats have. Well, we've got to go back and fix that law that gives people of wealth the ability to basically buy the politicians. And also we've got to take the ability of the politicians to willy-nilly take money and then vote for those people who give them the money without the interest of the general public. I myself have evolved, though people I know politically don't exactly agree with it. I think, for starters, we can deal with this ability of these people to give all this money to have term limits. 3 years in the House and out, 5 years in the Senate and out. That means that if the politicians receive money from some wealthy people, that wealthy person has got to understand that that's good for a 3-year term or a 5-year term. And they can't squeeze people. They can't squeeze the system by having these people in their pocket. And they do have them in the pocket. If you look at these stupid people from Georgia, House representatives, who have the audacity to say, one of them, that, the insurrection, it was like a tourist situation. This guy named Schneider had the whatever to go on television and say that. This man is pictured at the Capitol barricading the doors from the insurrectionists who were running rampant through the House. This is indicative of somebody who gets money to run for office, and he wants all the bad things to go away so that the people who should be held responsible are not held responsible. So we have got a lot of work to do. And one last thing, for me, it's extremely upsetting to see the military that has been so politicized in terms of this white supremacist way of thinking. It's so dangerous. It's so incredible. And I want to point out the fact that the military is trained to defend themselves. Frankly, when it's time to go to war and they're in boot camps, they're trained to kill. These are not the people who should, when they come out of the military, be given jobs in the police forces unless they go through incredible disclosure, psychological tests, mental tests, background checks. This is one of the reasons we have these things in the street. It's just not racism. It's the fact that these men were trained to use violence to get their way. And shooting a person 20 years old who's going through a traffic stop, I'm sorry, that might work if you're in a war zone and someone's going through a barricade. But this is a democratic country. So I know the pandemic, thank God, I think we're going to be concluding it. We'll deal with it, whatever. The economy is gradually coming back for people generally. If Biden can get his work done on things like the infrastructure, things will stabilize more there. But we've unearthed a terrible, terrible virus of hate and violence and against us that we have in this country. And lastly, it's like the emperor has no clothes, and all of a sudden, I hate to say this because I really am a very much people person. We have so many stupid people in this country who bought into the Trump cult. You see these 50-year-old men and women, mostly in southern states and even the Midwest, and they're asked about the election, and they say, "Oh no, I believe it was a phony." And why do you? Well, I saw it on television. Folks, we're dealing with people who are part of a cult, who are part of a sickness. And it's a sickness that Donald Trump created for his own political advantage, and his playbook is Hitler. If you go to PBS, you'll find, I think it's about the third episode, of how the Nazis rose to power. In the beginning, as he began his quest, the playbook is exactly like Trump. Hit one group against another group. And Germany was against the Jews and then the Polacks. Then run it up the flagpole, get violent with them, say, "We're taking care of you, these terrible people." And then you get this other group to say, "Hey, violence is it," and on we go. How many people were lost in the Second World War on both sides when they gave into hatred? And call it what it is. Racism, forget racism. It's hatred. And we got to deal with it.
All right, a couple of things before we go that I want to talk a little bit about, and I find this humorous, is that the investigative reporters came out with a story. I think it was in the New York Times, or it might have been in one of the business magazines, that the internet and the speed for the internet, even though the big companies said they were against this internet bill that was put forward to give advantages to people who could pay for more internet speed, behind the scenes they approved it. And that's one of the things that we have to look at as a country now, when we look not only at the internet but look at cable TV. Cable TV now is breaking out. These companies are multi-joining. I mean, Discovery Network now, you can spend $4.99 a month and get the programming that way. You've got HBO Max doing the same. CBS formed Paramount, and now AT&T has decided, and they've merged with Warner Media and Discovery. Pretty soon, American choices for what you want to watch and how you want to watch them. I mean, when you look at the average consumer's cable bill now, Jim, which is becoming a necessity, it's somewhere between the lows of $100 and some odd a month to averaging around $200 a month. this country has got to wake up and once again fight back and make it more equitable. Yes, wealthy people should make money. Yes, businesses should make money, but not at the expense of the people who don't make a lot of money. And that's one, it used to be that wealthy people paid their fair share and things went better. But over the past 25, 30 years, wealthy people have gotten more of the breaks and normal people none of the breaks. It's time to turn that back around and have wealthy people carry the mantle for a while.
Well, you remind me of Jill, who firstly leading the parade, and you and me talking about people selecting the news that doesn't necessarily respond to their emotions, but rather is something that gives their intellect something to think about, which is posed in a way that one can, in an intelligent way, figure out what's right and what's wrong for them and for the country. And generally speaking, in talking about this wealth and wealthy people having the upper hand, that's not going to work, okay? That works only so long. And in the 20s, that's 1920s, we saw wealth overtake this country. And the speculation, not investment, brought the stock market down, and with it, because people had these crazy notions, created the Depression. We didn't have at that time the false safe that FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt created. And we have some of them now, but courtesy of the Republicans, we've given some of those false safes up. We need to get them back, but we need to understand, and our children need to understand, that the country is a democracy. That means fairness. It doesn't mean somebody has an edge versus somebody else. It means fairness. Everybody has a right. Everybody pays their fair share. If you look at the stock market, you'll find when the Democrats get in over the last 50, 60 years, most of the time the market rallied. You know why? Because the individual guy felt healthier, he was working, he was making money, and he was putting it back in the economy. Frequently, and I'm overgeneralizing, when the Republicans get in, they'd squeeze the budget and say, okay, well, we don't need all that for infrastructure, we don't need all that for bridges, etc. And in the process, squeeze not only the pocketbook, but the morale and mentality of the common man. We can't let that happen again. We're at a precipice point here. We've come through tremendous shocks, and we can't stand any more of it. And one last note, there's a bridge in Tennessee, a major bridge between Memphis. It's falling down. And the Republicans are saying, oh, well, infrastructure, we'll cherry pick it and so forth. Folks, pay attention, write to your congressman and your senator, your newspaper, talk to your friends, get in the game. We need to save this country. And for those who are very wealthy, and I don't mean to be silly, the thing that in our own history, it was the French Revolution, and when the French nobles got out of hand, they got the hand. They got the back of the stick.
All right. Jim, we'll speak to you next week.
You got it.
Take care.
You got it. Market got racked. It'll get racked again.
All right.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Have a good one. Enjoy the weather.
All right,
Bye.
Jim. Jim Lynch, and Cover Your Assets here on Robin Hood Radio, robinhoodradio.com.